So starting chapter 8 today, the laboratory of the invisible world. And from this point on, we're going to start a little more in depth to understand the spiritual world, revelation from the spirits, and observations of Kardec. Okay? Now we start on 126.
Okay. 126. We have already said that spirits sometimes appear in floating draperies, sometimes in ordinary human clothes. Oops, where'd you go?
Oh, I went too far? Sorry.
Yeah. The former appeared to be the general custom of the spirit world, but it would naturally be asked, whence do spirits get their clothing? Clothing which is often precisely like what they wore on earth, comprising all the ordinary accessories of the toilet. It is certain that in dying, they did not carry those objects away with them. Yet we see them before us and can touch them with our hands whence they do come. This problem has always been a puzzling one for observers. With many, it is simply a matter of curiosity, but it really involves a point of great importance. Our search after its solution has set us on the track of a general law, to move it up, Elmo,
Yep.
which is equally applicable to the spirit world and to our corporeal world, and without a knowledge of which it is impossible to explain the complicated phenomenon referred to. In the case of a spirit who appears with the clothing he wore during life, we might explain the appearance as a result of an action of the spirit's memory, and as forming, so as to say, a part of his individuality. But this could hardly be supposed to be the case as regards accessories, such, for instance, as the snuff box of the old gentleman who visited the sick lady, as related above in 127. And it is moreover to be remarked that in the case alluded to, the, the apparition was not that of a dead person, but of a living one. And that is the same old gentleman when he afterwards visited the lady in his material body, brought with him a snuff box similar in every aspect to that which has been used by his spirit. Where did his spirit find the snuff box that was in his hand when he sat at the foot of the lady's bed? A question that may be repeated in regard to a great number of cases which we could instance in which the spirits of deceased as well as of living persons have appeared, carrying in their hands various objects, such as sticks, pipes, lanterns, books, etc. It formerly occurred to us that inert bodies might possibly have their etherealized correspondence in the invisible world, and that the condensed matter which forms the objects of our world might have, in the spirit world, the corresponding quintessence which our bodily senses are unable to perceive. This hypothesis was not devoid of probability, but it failed to account for all the facts that presented themselves, and of which one especially seemed to defy all our attempts at interpretation. Up to that time, there had occurred, in our experience, only instances of images or appearances. And although we had seen that the perispirit could acquire the properties of matter and could become tangible, yet this tangibility had been only momentary, and seemingly solid body thus produced had vanished like a shadow. That phenomenon was sufficiently extraordinary, but what was still more so was to see persistently solid matter produced by spirits, as has been done in a number of perfectly authentic cases. And among others, in the phenomenon to which we have just referred, that of direct writing, there I lost myself, writing, that phenomenon
Want to go back here?
yeah, I lost,
In the phenomenon to which we have just referred, this
okay, that is
of the
that.
direct horizon.
Okay.
We
We
shall
shall
treat
treat
of,
of such as sticks, pipes, lanterns.
no, no,
Okay, no, 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 no.
that phenomenon in a special chapter.
Okay, okay. But as it is intimately connected with the point we are now considering, we will, before proceeding further, offer a few remarks in regard to it. Okay,
Okay.
okay.
So as you can see, this edition is quite different from the one that most of us have. I myself have a hard time dealing with two different editions. Um, but what Kardec starts this chapter is a very common and understandable question that anyone who is starting spiritism will have this question. For those who are able to see spirits via mediumship, via clairvoyance, we'll see spirits dressed. Most often with a tunic, something a long dress-like thing that covers their bodies. But in many other occasions, they will dressed pretty much the same way they will dressed when incarnate. Very often, a spirit, of let's say, of a Civil War soldier wounded in war or who discarnated in war, who is not aware that he has been discarnate all this time, a seeing medium will see that spirit dressed with the uniform of his battalion, will perhaps even notice the injury that this individual presents in his perispirit, because his mind is still very connected to the physicality, correct? And that is this case of this incarnated guy who appeared in petty spirit to the bedroom of a sick lady, and he had in his hand this snuff box that was absolutely the same that he carries in his normal physical state. How do we explain that? So Kardec, of course, he came out with a theory that inert objects might have ethereal correspondence in the invisible world, and the condensed matter that form various objects might contain a quintessential component that our senses cannot detect. So the hypothesis that he developed was that the same way that we have a petty spirit, ethereal physical body, and we have a physical body, inert objects, inanimate objects, also have its correspondence in the spiritual world. The same way that I have this physical body and I have the petty spirit that corresponds to it, a coin, you have a correspondent coin in the spiritual world. This book that I have in my hand right now may have a correspondent, no, a medium's book in the spiritual world. Well, it's a pretty good hypothesis. No, so that's not that snuff box has a correspondent snuff box in the spiritual world that looks exactly the same. It is a good hypothesis, but unfortunately, it's not true. Does not hold true. Okay, and that's the beauty of the science of spiritism, that it develops hypotheses, it work on it, and reach conclusions. Yeah, it works, or no, it doesn't work. And this hypothesis did not hold true, it did not work, but it's still a hypothesis. So it's still a valid hypothesis. So the question persists. How does, because let's say if I die right now and my wife forgets that no, I'm supposed to donate my body to science and bury me in a suit, the tie and everything else, and and end up in the spiritual world. How do I end up myself? How do I see myself in the spiritual world with that same suit, no shoes, and everything else that my wife put on my body? That's how I'm going to be in the spiritual world, and I'm gonna be with that for the rest of my time in the spiritual world. When I hang over there, there'll be always that damn tie and that damn. Do I even like that tie? Am I gonna have to wear it all the time now? Not fair. Do I have opportunity to change to something else? And if I do, where do I get the something else? What if I want to be on a t-shirt and shorts? Where do I get a t-shirt and shorts in the spiritual world? And the spirit that presents to us dressed, where do they get their clothes? It's a very, very valid question. What is the answer? How do we explain this? And that's pretty much what we're going to explore here in the laboratory of the invisible world. And San Luis is going to give us the explanation for us very soon. Okay?
Mhm.
Questions, comments? All right, let's go to 27 then.
7. Direct writing or pneumatography is that which is produced spontaneously, that is to say, without the help of the medium's hand or pencil. It is enough.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
You understand the differentiation then? We're not talking about psychography, right?
Mhm.
We're talking about directed writing. The spirit will write on a piece of paper by itself without the hands of a medium. It's not a psychography.
Right.
Okay? Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It is enough to provide a clean sheet of paper, which can be done with all due precautions, so as to assure ourselves that we have not been made the victims of trickery. To fold it up and to put it into a drawer or upon a table, after which, if conditions are favorable, we find, and perhaps in a very short time, various signs, letters, and even long communications traced upon the paper, usually with some black or gray substance having the appearance of lead or crayon, sometimes as though traced with a red pencil, and sometimes again as though written with common ink or even with printer's ink. When a pencil is placed with the paper, we may suppose that the spirit has used it for writing. But when the paper only is left without anything else, it is evident that the writing is done with some sort of material produced by the spirits themselves. But where do the spirits find that material? To this question, the snuff box above mentioned was the means of procuring for us an answer which appears to us to be conclusive. Mm,
Thanks.
okay.
Okay, so you understand the question Kardec has now, right? All right, you understand the close. We understand the snuff box. And there is another thing over here that makes things even more perplexing. The so-called directed writing or pneumatography. How does it pneumatography works? You got a piece of paper,
Mm,
white sheet of paper, nothing on it. Put it on an empty drawer. No pencil, no pen, no crayon, nothing. Nothing but a piece of paper. Close that drawer. Lock it. Pass a car, something to tie it up 3, 4, 5 times. There's no way that anyone could have opened that. Give it some time. Remove all the locks. Open the drawer, and that piece of paper now there is a message or there is a drawer, whatever the spirits want to do. All right, we know, we all believe in mediumship, we all believe that it's possible, but how do I explain it? Where did the spirit got the material to write in that piece of paper? Where they got that ink from? And this happens not only with writing, it happens with drawing, with pictures, with painting. Where do we get this? Do the spirits get this? How are they able to reproduce things that's pertaining to our physical world? A piece of paper written just like the ones that we have in front of us now. Um, the answer is coming from St. Louis, as you're going to read right now.
Okay. 128. It was the spirit of St. Louis who gave us, in reference to this problem, the solution referred to, and which is embodied in the following dialogue. First, we have laid before you the case of an apparition of the spirit of a person in the flesh. This spirit carried a snuff box and took snuff. Did he feel the sensation which we should feel in this act? No. Second, this snuff box looked exactly like the one which he habitually used, but that real snuff box was in his house. What was the snuff box seen in his hands? In his hand. In appearance, it was made to occur in order both that the circumstance might be remarked, as in fact was the case, and also that the apparition might not be taken for an hallucination produced by the ill health of the seer. The spirit desired that the lady should be convinced of the reality of his presence. He therefore assumed all the appearances of reality. Third, you say it was an appearance, but there is nothing real in the appearance, which is a sort of optical illusion. What we want to know is whether this snuff box was only an image without reality, or whether there was not something of materiality in its nature. Certainly, there was nothing material in its nature. It is by the aid of this materiality that the perispirit takes on the appearance of clothes, like those which the spirit wore while on the earth. Remark. It is evident that we must here understand the word appearance in the sense of aspect or imitation. The box in its reality was not there. What the spirit held in his hand was only its representative. It was therefore an appearance as compared with the original, although formed of a sort of matter. Experience teaches us not to take too literally every expression employed by spirits. By interpreting their expressions according to our own ideas, we run the risk of falling into serious errors, and we should therefore endeavor to assert the real meaning of their words whenever these present the least ambiguity, as the spirits themselves constantly recommend us to do. For instance, without the explanation just given, the word appearance, frequently recurring in analogous cases, might give rise to false interpretation.
Thanks.
Okay.
That's enough for now.
Mhm.
Okay, so Kardec has had many times resource to St. Louis to get the answers that we all have at this point now.
Mhm.
Um, in the case of the snuff box, if the spirit had used that snuff box and used it to snuff, would it get the same sensation? And the answer is no from the spirit. Okay, the spirit would not feel the same. Okay, and we will see later why. I'm not gonna tell you right now why. Okay, that snuff box that the spirit have in his hand was absolutely analogous, absolutely equal, the one that he has in real life, the one that was in his house. So, was anything material about that? No, there was just an appearance. Okay, the thing is that that man, that man was always with a snuff box in his hand.
Mm.
Everywhere that he went, he would have that snuff box in his hand. If he had appeared to that lady perispiritically, again, the physical body was laying in the house, in his house. Him and his perispirit went to the house and appeared to that lady. If it had appeared to that lady without the snuff box, she could say it was not real. It wasn't. It was a dream. It was anything because he is never without his snuff box. So, because that spirit want to make sure that lady would recognize him, he made took care of all the details of showing that him was indeed that for that man, and he would have to have this snuff box with him. So he was careful enough to, when going to the lady house, very spiritly, to bring a appearance of a snuff box with him as the only way that should, um, as the only way there would be no doubt there was indeed there was him.
Mm.
So the question now is, there was a real snuff box. Yes, there was. Was it material? No, it was not.
Mm.
It was not as material as we are, but it is material as the perispirit is material. It is ethereal matter. It's made of ethereal matter. Okay? And then Kardec goes on and explaining the word appearance. And more important, it says how we need to be careful when we read what the spirits are telling us.
Mm.
Spirits are extremely, the more evolved the spirits, of course, extremely frugal with words, okay, and extremely objective. And that's why Kardec in the Spirit's book, he has a question, he has a second question complementary the first question, may have a third question complementary the
Mm.
second question, and so forth. So because he wants to be absolutely clear, and in this case here, he almost repeats the question because of the word appearance. What do you mean by appearance? Do you mean that this was not a real thing, or just an imagination? And Santa says, no, of course it was real. She saw it, he had in his hand.
Mm.
So what he means by appearance in here is to be analogous to the real one that was in his house, the physical one that was in his house. Okay? I know it's a little bit complicated right now, but San Luis will explain right now. We are all curious to get there.
Yeah. Okay. Fourth, can it be that inert matter has its double? Can it be that in the invisible world there is an essential matter which assumes the forms of the objects of our world? In other words, have the objects of the terrestrial world their ethereal counterparts in the invisible world, as spirits are the counterparts of men? That is not the case. A spirit exerts over the material elements everywhere, disseminated in space and in your atmosphere. A power such as you are far from suspecting. He can, by his will, concentrate those elements and give them the apparent form required for his projects.
Thanks.
Mm,
So remember the hypothesis that Kardec created?
mm,
Is exactly what he's asking St. Louis now. Is it because for everything that you have in the physical world, we have an analogous one in the spiritual world? We have the same way that we have an analogous physical body as a spiritual body. So there is an analogous book that you have in my hand right now in the spiritual world. There is an analogous snuff box that man had in the physical world, an analogous one in the spiritual world that he just went out of the body, he just picked that up, that was there for him to use it. It's a pretty good hypothesis, but Sansui says, no, that's not the case. The spirit exerts over the material elements everywhere, which is the CSFs, no, it is a CSF, right? Everywhere designated to the space in your atmosphere, a power such that you are far from suspect. So the spirit, having the know-how, having the permission, we went to this before already. We all have, as spirits incarnate on Earth, the ability to fly an airplane. We all have the ability to swim for different styles. We all have the ability to skydive. Who is doing it? Not everyone.
mm,
Those who have the interest, those who develop the know-how, and those who are allowed in many different ways to do so. Right? The same thing in the spiritual world, okay, when they use the spirits can do this. Yeah, we all have the potential to do this, but not everybody's doing it. If an extraterrestrial come to Earth, spend time on Earth, go back to the spirit to their planet, and now answer questions of what he found here, and somebody ask him, "Can humans swim?" The answer would be yes. But I'm sure that a lot of people inside here, they listen to me, they cannot swim. My wife cannot swim,
mm,
right? But the answer is yes, humans can swim. Those who have learned how, those who have the interest in learn how, those who had opportunity to learn how to. Perhaps somebody was born and grew up in the middle of the Sahara and only saw sand the entire life, never had the opportunity to learn how to swim because there was no water for them to learn how to swim. But humans has the ability to swim. The same thing the spirits has the ability to manipulate universal fluid or cosmic fluid that is available throughout our atmosphere everywhere and synthesize things and create things. So the spirit having the know-how is able to pick up CSF and create a snuff box that's absolutely analogous to the one that exists in the real life. So when I end up in the spiritual world with that suit and tie and shoes that my wife put on me to bury me, I'll say I cannot live my spiritual life in these things. If I have the know-how, I will synthesize a t-shirt and a pair of shorts and I'll be very happy over there. And if I don't have, I'll develop the skills because being a spirit, I have the ability to learn. Or maybe I'll be happy with being in my tie, which is not true. Okay, is that everybody understood that? Because this is the answer to the question here. We manufacture things with the power of our mind. Power is, it says, a power such as you are far from suspecting. We are far from suspect the ability what we can do with the power of our mind, especially this carnet, that we don't have to deal with many nature forces in natures, that we can manipulate CSF and create things.
mm,
This is the answer to all of our questions. Okay, we are able to manipulate universal cosmic fluid, combine those elements, and synthesize, manufacture things that we need, things that we like. Is there a limit? Of course. And we're going to see those limits ahead. Questions? Because this is the answer. Everybody has to understand this. How am I going to get rid of my suit and tie and get myself into a t-shirt in the spiritual world? I can synthesize that t-shirt if I have the know-how, if I'm allowed, right? Is that clear? All right, so you can move on then.
Very interesting. Okay. Where are we? Remark. Uh,
Remarks.
the foregoing question, as will have been seen, was a translation of our own thought, that is to say, of the idea we had formed in regard to the nature of those objects. If the answer had been, as some may surmise, reflection of our own thought, we should have received the confirmation of our own position, instead of receiving an explanation altogether contrary to the one which we had imagined. Yes.
Thanks.
Okay.
So basically, in his remarks, Kardec wanted to reinforce that he had the hypothesis differently. If this was some kind of an illusion, some kind of a if you suspect that the spirit were not giving the right answer, it could just go ahead and agree with you and give you a false answer. No, your hypothesis is good, is very well. That's what it is. There is an analogous in the spiritual world of everything that is in this physical world. But sometimes go ahead and say, no, that's not the case. The case is that we, in the spiritual world, we are able to manipulate CSF and manufacture the things that we will wear, that carry around with us. Clear?
Mm, mm.
Okay. All right. Fifth.
Yes. We repeat our question categorically to avoid all ambiguity, and we again ask you, are the clothes worn by spirits something real? It appears to me that my previous answer replies to your question. Do you not know that the perispirit itself is something real?
Okay, so Kardec again, he wants confirmation. And again, that's why he has asked question after question after question, because he wants to be clear for us when he puts in this book that we get the message. And we see here how straightforward, direct, and objective the enlightened spirits are, being extremely objective with the answers. I already told you this. Of course it's real. Don't you know that your perispirit is real? Ethereal but real? Haven't you got that yet, man? But Kardec has no shame. He will ask again and again and again to make sure that he understands and he passes it to us way that we can understand. Okay? Questions? Comments? 6.
Okay. Your explanation seems to imply that spirits transform ethereal matter at pleasure, and that consequently, with regard to the snuff box, for example, the spirit did not find it ready made, but made it himself at the moment when he wanted it by an act of his will, and that he was able afterwards to unmake it. It must therefore be the same in regard to all other objects seen in spirits, whether clothes, jewelry, jewels, or whatnot. It evidently so.
So you see here, Kardec has no shame. He doesn't care. What he does in number 6 here, he basically repeats everything that San Luis already said. And say, basically say, did you say A, B, C, D, E? Is that what you did just told me? And St. Louis says, evidently so. Of course, that he already told us that man, when he was out of body in perispirit, he did not find a snuff box waiting for him there. He created one with the power of his mind, manipulating universal cosmic fluid. And that's the same way that we have our jewels, the same way that we have our guns and knives and the bad stuff and the good stuff and my Mike t-shirt and my pair of shorts. That's how we will create by the power of our will, the power of our mind. Okay? Seven.
Heavens, the snuff box in question was visible for the lady, so plain and so plainly as to make her think it real. Could the spirit have made it tangible for her? He could have done so. Mm,
Okay, next. We covered already tangibility, right? If the spirit could make his own perispirit tangible, he could also could make that snuff what tangible, palpable to us. How? Manipulation of the universe cosmic fluid, the same way. Okay, change it from it translucent to it opaque, turns to it ethereal to more palpable object. How do they do it? I don't know, but they are able to do it.
Eight, could the lady have taken the box in her hands? And in that case, would it still have appeared to her to be a real snuff box? Yes. Mm, Nine.
Next.
Ninth,
Hmm.
if she had opened it, she would probably have found snuff there. If she had taken a pinch, would it have made her sneeze? Yes.
Very important here. Okay. If that lady have opened that box and find tobacco there and no, it's not the tobacco, he'd have the same should have the same sensation as if was a tobacco in the real world. When the spirits bring flowers and present to us from the spiritual world or to bring from one place to another, it will feel like a flower. It smells like a flower. When in days of spiritual treatment, you get into a room in a spiritual center and you have that smell of ether. The smell is there the same way that ether would smell otherwise in the physical world. It will be perceived by our senses. Okay?
Okay, tense. A spirit then can not only produce a form, but it can give to that form the special properties of the object thus imitated. Thus imitated? Yes, if he so wills it. It was in virtue of this principle that I gave affirmative replies to your preceding questions. You will have abundant proofs of the powerful action exercised by spirit over matter. Proofs such as you little imagine at present, as I have already told you.
Okay, very important. So the lady would be able to smell the tobacco and reacted that the same way that we react to tobacco very often sneezing, the same way that you would smell the flowers, the same natural smell of flowers. If they bring roses from the spiritual world present to us, it will smell like roses as we recognize the smell of roses. Does it happen um, on its own? No. St. Louis says it, that the spirit also works on transforming and creating that sense of smell, of creating that sense of compatibility, of that thing in the spiritual world to the things in the physical world in all aspects of our senses: smell, tactile. If it's thing that make noise, the sound would be thing, but the spirits creates that, manipulating CSF. Okay,
Mhm.
so it's not like create a snuff box and it's because they create a snuff box, it's full of tobacco that smells like tobacco. No, the spirit also created the tobacco and it create the perceptions that we would feel of that thing. A tobacco when it smell makes you sneeze. If that lady would smell that tobacco, she would sneeze because that's what tobacco causes us to do. But the spirit creates all of those with the power of its will, manipulating universal cosmic fluid. Okay?
Mhm. Okay.
10.
A spirit then can not only produce a form, but can give to, to that form the special properties of the object imitated, thus imitated. Yes, if he so wills it, it was in virtue of this principle that I gave affirmative replies to your preceding questions. You will have abundant proofs of the powerful action exercised by spirit over matter. Proof, proofs such as you little imagine at present, as I have already told you.
Yes.
Mm,
Yes, I'm sorry, we read that already. 11.
yeah. If a spirit had compounded a poisonous substance and some human being should swallow it, would the latter be poisoned? Such a compound could be made, but no spirit can make it, for he would not be permitted to do so.
So remember in the beginning of the talk, I said there are limitations to everything. So here's where a very obvious limitation. Okay. So, and it's a very good question. If I'm an obsessor of Paco,
Yeah.
I want Paco dead. I want Paco back in the spiritual world with me so I can take care of him. So Paco likes to drink coffee. I will create some kind of poison. I'm gonna put in Paco's coffee, and Paco will drink that coffee and will die. Since I can manipulate things that resembles the things in the physical world in its all aspects, why could I not make a poison and go after those that I want to destroy and destroy them? They don't see me. I'm invisible. I could just load Paco's cup of coffee with poison and would have the same effect as real poison. If it's arsenic, you'd die with arsenic poisoning. Could I create arsenic in the spiritual world and kill Paco? And the answer from San Luis, yes, you could, but you're not going to be allowed to do so. Here we go into the thing of limit. So even if I have the know-how, I am not allowed to do so. Even if I have the know-how, I will not be able to harm someone in that matter. As we know in the spiritual world, most of the obsessors, they harm us by utilizing our bad inclinations itself, not utilizing, creating things to harm the ones that we love, the ones that we hate, but we use their problems, their vices, and you just instigate them to go and bury themselves on it, right? So there is a limitation. 12.
Elmo,
Yep.
are those limitations what prevent spirits to produce their own, let's say, drugs, alcohol, and other vices? And that's why they come after people that enjoy those vices to absorb that energy and everything else.
Correct. Correct. They are not allowed to do it.
Thank you.
Number 12. Could he fabricate a substance that would be beneficial to health and capable of curing a malady? Has such a thing ever been done? Yes, very often. Hmm.
Okay. So that's the other way around. Can I create something instead of kill someone to improve the health of someone? And the answer is yes, and and it happens often.
Uh,
Remember the case with Bezerra de Menezes when his spirit, already discarnate, wrote a prescription via Chico Xavier and gave the prescription to the lady, and the lady gave the prescription back to Chico Xavier and said, I am sorry, but I, I don't have money to buy this medicine. I just cannot afford it. And Chico Xavier went back to Bezerra and told Bezerra, "Hey, man, what am I gonna do now? The lady cannot buy the medication. I don't have money to give her either. I'm broke also. What's gonna happen?" Bezerra told him, "Tell her not to worry about, to take a little piece of the paper every day and drink with water." So what was Bezerra doing there? Exactly what we said over here. You would create that compound, that medication in the spiritual world, and the lady would have to have something to give her the certainty that he was taking medication. So he said, take a little bit of the paper, swallow it water. But the compound was already provided for her to consume when she consumed in the water or in the paper. I don't know, right? So for the positive thing, yes. And there is a big thing here. More evolved spirits are able to do a lot more than less evolved spirit. More evolved spirit having always the right intention, the intention for goodness, have tremendous amount of freedom to act. And those like ourselves, until inclined to evil, have our right, so to say, very limited, because likely would interfere with the rights of others. I don't know if I should go on. We started 46, right? Yeah, yeah. Let's do 13.
to 13?
Yeah.
Okay. If so, he could, no doubt, as easily fabricate all alimentary substance. Suppose he made some fruit or any other article of food. Would it appease a man's hunger if he ate it? Yes, yes. But do not try so hard to find out what it is so easy to understand. A ray of sunlight suffices to enable your gross organs to perceive the material particles which fill the space in the midst of which you live. Do you not know that the air contains the vapor of water? Condense that vapor, and you bring it back to its normal state of water. Deprive it of heat and do. The impeccable and invisible molecules of that vapor have been changed into a solid body. And how many other substances are there from which chemists will produce marvels even more astonishing? But spirits possess instruments more perfect than yours, right? So their will and the divine permission. Um,
Okay, again with the remarks.
Okay. The question of the appeasing of hunger by substances of the character we are considering is very important. For the substance has only temporary existence and properties and is, so to say, only a sort of pretense. How can it appease the hunger of the material body? Okay, this substance, by its contact with the stomach, produces a sensation of satiety, but not the satiety which results from filling the stomach with its natural food. If such a substance can act on the bodily economy so as to modify the morbid state, it can just as well act on the stomach so as to produce the sensation resulting from the satisfaction of appetite. Nevertheless, those whose business it is to provide us with drugs and with dinners, need not to be jealous of spirit power, nor imagine that the denizens of other world are coming into competition with them. Such cases of spirit action are rare, exceptional, and independent of the human will. Otherwise, we should really be fed and cured too cheaply.
I love
This-
it. Okay, again, there is a limitations to everything. Okay, how did Christ multiply the bread and the fish? Use the same process, right? Manipulating universe cosmic fluid. And now, did it make enough big piece of bread and no whole fillet of fish for to everyone? No, a little piece that when swallowed would give the sensation of satisfaction in the stomach. The compound that was created over there, when in contact with the stomach, would satisfy them with just a bite of bread, as if you had eaten a whole bread. Okay, that was the quality of the product produced by the spirits. Okay, so it's not like the created new bread is exactly the same bread that we make in our bakery, but you put it in your mouth, it feels like bread, it tastes like bread, it smells like bread, and when swallowed, just a little piece of it, you give the sensation of fullness as if you had eaten a lot more than you actually have. Okay? Now, another important question, point the remarks of Kardec. We are here in this school, in this hospital, to undergo difficult trials, difficult experiences. Some of us may have to experience the sensation, the difficulty of acquiring food. If that is my trial, if that is the lessons that I need, why would the evolved spirits deny me that opportunity to go to that experience? No, they wouldn't. Because it comes to the question why there is hunger in the world then if the good spirits can provide food for everyone. But if if it didn't have to come here and experience things pertaining to this physical world, so why to reincarnate then? Reincarnate here exactly to go to those necessary lessons. They may not be pleasant, they may not be appreciated by us while here, and should not. Nobody should appreciate being hungry. But there is a purpose, there is a reason, there is a what for, and the spirits will not interfere with our learning process. If I need to go through this experience, struggling to find enough nutrients for my physical body, there is a purpose. There is a lesson for me to learn over there, and the spirits will not deny me the opportunity to go to to go to that experience to learn what I have to learn. Does it make sense? Questions, comments? Because we're going to stop here.
I'm curious about something.
Mhm.
Because I heard that answer from the multiplication of the bread and the fish from Jesus before, the same answer you just gave. But is that like an answer from the spirits that what actually happened? Because Jesus, being Jesus, he could do perform a materialization the same way that he did, the way we study here. So I'm just curious if that answer was from the spirits or we kind of assumed that what was happening.
Isn't that the answer that St. Louis gave now, how we manipulate USF to create sensation of fullness when people digest those things? Isn't St. Louis just gave us this answer now? Uh, why would I think that Jesus would use a different method?
No, I'm
Yes,
saying,
he could create any other method, he could do anything way in accordance to the laws of nature, because Christ did not perform miracles. Christ performed phenomena that our science cannot yet explain. Eventually will. So he may have used this method that St. Louis explained to us, or did he use a different method? I'm gonna go with this one because that is one that is explained that makes completely sense. But perhaps he has the technique, the know-how of manipulate things UCF in a much greater ways that we cannot perform or do not understand yet.
I was thinking something that we already studied before, like the materialization,
Right.
because it's not like that crazy. Because we saw that with
Yeah, but
different things.
it is materialization here is talking about. It is materialized, condensed UCF in a way that is becomes palpable and can be eaten by someone. It is a materialization, but it's not a materialization in the sense of the physical phenomena as with the utilization of ectoplasm, or at least not as what's described here.
Oh, okay. Because I was thinking materialization in a sense of there was three fish, and then he materialized 300 more fish. So what you're saying is materializing of material.
Realized.
Okay, you got it. Uh, in a condensed form, in a small piece that would serve the purpose of a whole fish, for example, in the same way with just a small bite.
Yes, and that's what I had read. I believe Amelia Rodriguez, psychography via Divaldo. That was not that everyone over there got a whole loaf of bread. Everyone over there got a little piece of bread that when eat gave a sensation of eating a whole loaf of bread.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, we will stop here now. And at least I think this topic is very interesting.
It is very interesting.
Um, and you continue next week. And somebody make the final prayer for us, please.
Need to pray. Allah. Our spiritual benefactors, our beloved Christ, with a hearts full of gratitude, we thank you. As we hear again having the opportunity of being together again, continuing the learning and understanding of the Spirit of God, giving us all that we need in order to keep ourselves focused in a direction of goodness and of peace. We thank you, dear Lord, for that. We thank you for the teachers and all that participate in our meetings. And as we come to the end of our meeting, may we continue throughout the week with prayers in our hearts, helping all those that are in need in this physical planet. We pray for the protection of our SGNY, our teachers, our mediums, and all that contribute to SGNY. We continue with prayers throughout the week, continue our studies and meetings always. And with that in mind, dear Lord, we ask permission to close our meeting today. So